Is your consciousness in the world, or is the world in your consciousness? The situation can shift, like in those optical illusions where you can see a vase or two people face to face, and it can shift back and forth. But when you recognize that it is at least equally true that the world appears in your consciousness, and that you are therefore beyond the world, transcendent of the world, that is simply an appearance of apparent activity of forms moving in apparent space and time, observed from a changeless point of view, then there is much greater detachment and peace and humor in all that is being observed. And nothing touches you because you are inherently beyond what is being observed. And when it is recognized that the world is an appearance in your consciousness, it is the equivalent of a dream, to be interpreted, but not to be enmeshed in. And to recognize that whatever is being perceived is simply a reflection of forces, powers, energies that emerge from within you as the perceiver. And in that recognition that you are not of the world at all, and only apparently in it when the optical illusion shifts, enables a change, a freedom to be in the world when that apparent perception shifts, in a state of freedom, rather than enmeshed in the causality of an apparent past or future tied to the world of appearance, but always free as that emptiness that can intervene in the appearance of space-time without having been predetermined by any past events. And without any inherent identification with any being that appears in the dream of the world. And therefore with full freedom to express the truth, the love, the wisdom of your inherent self that is untouched by fear or desire. For once perceived as a dream, there is no desire to enter into the dreaming, but to remain lucid as the one who perceives the dream from an awakened state. It is this practice of perceiving the world as a dream that is an appearance within consciousness, rather than falling into the illusion of your being a conscious actor within the world, that enables a new kind of energy and understanding to enter into the character that you have apparently been playing in that dream drama. And you are no longer forced to play a role or a script that was given to that character, because now you enter into it with freedom as a kind of walk-in to your own body, without any past history determining your thoughts or your actions. But you can come into the body and the world and activity with a clean slate, as an avatar, as a being of light, fearless, and with the power of love and truth motivating you, without any desire to gain anything within the dream, because you need nothing except to remain awakened. Because being awakened, you are fully empowered. But if you fall asleep and enter into the dream believing you are a creature within it, you will have lost your power. You will be determined by the other. And so for true independence and liberation from the demands of the other, the collective fears of the world, the collective blindness and ignorance of the world, it is imperative, for the sake of your own happiness and for the sake of being of service to those who remain asleep within the dream, unaware of their own liberated nature, to awaken them simply through being uncannily different from anything they may have expected you to be, based on some past history of interaction. Because you are no longer identified with that character from the past, you are now able to act with indeterminacy, in a way that is uncaused by any of the forces within the dream. And thus you can bring to bear a level of consciousness, empowerment, and wisdom that is undiminished by the projections of the other, untouched, unaffected by how others are reacting to the character that you seem to be playing in the dream. It becomes irrelevant. But the dream itself becomes your work of art, which can be subtly shifted every time you respond with freedom, with love, with peace and serenity, when the other would expect you to be upset or agitated or submissive or in some way reactive to the provocations of an ego, making demands or feeling neediness or feeling desire, but are able to remain unmoved in stillness that radiates power and compassion, that offers light, and that offers the gift of freedom to every being to awaken, as you have. And that is our function as Sat Yogis, simply that, remain awakened, Do not fall back into the dream, asleep to your real nature as pure awareness. Do not lose touch with the source of wisdom, of power, of truth, of love within you. Do not be reactive. Do not give in to memories that the character has of traumas that produce fight or flight mechanisms within its ego structure. But now you are able to manually override the automaticity of emotional reactivity of the ego and respond from that place of true greatness, true spiritual power that is able to bend and to dance and to swerve and to accommodate and to harmonize without need to resist and oppose and contract and fall into a kind of reactivity that makes you one down in the situation because it has created a loss of freedom. But to remain always above, on the lotus throne of pure consciousness, from which one has the luxury of responding with peace, with serenity, and with sharing that gift of dispassion, of freedom to be all that you are, not some limited version of yourself, but your infinite self that is without desire or need or fear, because you have already gone beyond the dream of being a creature that functions from lack, and already beyond the chains of language and of the mind that is enmeshed within the scenarios and melodramas of that dream world. But by coming afresh from the world of light, from the world beyond the dream in which you truly live and abide, you remain free to transform the dream itself into a manifestation of God's most holy sense of humor and of joy, and recognize that same free awareness in every being, that same capacity for love, that same radiance, that same fullness, that same understanding that unites us in a holy communion, regardless of how the ego characters in the dream seem to be relating. Even if they are in an argument, suddenly a new energy enters that can laugh at the entire scenario and not be taken in by that black comedy that may be playing out. And suddenly a shaft of light changes everything. And you are the source of those beams of light that change everything in your life, and therefore change everything in your world that is your dream. And the changes that you are able to make by intervening from a place of freedom, even in some micro interaction of seemingly small importance, cascades outward because everyone affected by some uncanny event of meeting a being who resides in freedom produces a response of freedom within them that then cascades out in their next interaction and changes in an uncanny way the trajectory of destiny that has now had an added point of energy and love and truth that had not existed in the dream before. That suddenly explodes all the chains of cause and effect and allows that instant of freedom to augment and grow and expand until the potential of freedom to break every chain of past causality, of suffering because of one's belief in causality, enables the unraveling of all the karmic knots that tie this dream together in its deadlock of inevitability heading toward catastrophe, and gives the opportunity for a collective redreaming from that space of freedom through the awakening of all the beings within the field of that morphic resonance, such that the power of love, of wisdom, of truth that enters into the field of the phenomenal plane changes the trajectory of time and space itself and curves the space back toward a new age of love, of light, an age of truth, in which all beings remain aware of our transcendent nature as eternal, luminous, loveful presence. It is a simple matter of not forgetting that you are always already outside the dream, not trapped within it. And simply through that knowledge, the dream begins to morph at this very moment. And not only does everything shift within the plane of your sensory circle of awareness, but all of those whom you may think about in relationships with those who are not physically present shift because the mind waves of those relations change. And even without any encounter on the physical plane, those relations morph into relationships of freedom rather than bondage. Because you are no longer the same being in your own mind, and the being that you are in your mind determines the being who interacts in the phenomenal plane. And the beings whom you interact with are no longer the same beings because you recognize them as manifestations of the same freedom and love and eternal light. And therefore everything shifts in your entire world, whether present or absent from the immediate surroundings. And the entirety of the simulation, the hologram that this is, begins to function from a new operating principle that delivers the dream from its nightmaric shadow side, its fear side, its lower death drive that wants to pull it into deeper agony, and instead draws it magnetically upward into greater ecstasy. It is that transformation that is a simple result of our detachment from identification as a creature in the dream to realizing our status as a dreamer. That changes the dream forever. into a pilgrimage of consciousness toward its own fulfillment, its own collective enlightenment, its own revelation of divinity. Nothing need be done except to be free, to be empty of identification, to be empty of an egoic sense of subjectivity, to be empty of chains of attachment, to be free, and to act with that freedom fearlessly and bring a new kind of beauty into the world of an unprecedented nature that cannot be categorized or characterized or limited in its extent or its power. Because you are unlimited. You are the God Self. You are the manifestation of love and truth. And therefore, that power can intervene in every moment through your simple awareness of the true nature of reality. That is your dream to remain awake within and beyond and transform its very nature to bring that fullness of joy that reflects the bliss of the God Self into the hearts of every character in the dream. Because every character in the dream is yourself.